also know that in December, anything that you do during December is going to magically apply to 2019. And in 2019, the program starts over, and you actually have to do your personal health profile again before I can pay you. I'm also going to tell you, you're the first to know that in 2019, we're inviting your spouses into the program, and they can actually earn $250. I'll take the applause. So there is $650 on the table next year. If you happen to be married and you have health insurance through Drexel, or if you're in the medical waiver opt-out. So we have Breast Health 101 coming up at the end of November. This is actually a 2-part workshop, so we're reconvening next Tuesday. The sessions will build on each other, so they will be different. So if you're here today, please come back. If you have a colleague who wants to jump in, they can go ahead and come next week. That's no problem. All right, so thank you. And our speaker is Alex DeVaron, who I did not introduce.
That's all right.
And he and I have a connection through the Philadelphia Shambhala Center, and he's also faculty at Temple University and runs some mindfulness activities there as well. So I'll let you go ahead and
Thank you.
reintroduce yourself if you wish and begin.
Thanks. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, let's silence our cell phones if we can. I know you might have to have them on vibrate if you're on call or something like that, but in the meantime, we can quiet them just in case. Thank you very much, Monica. So let me get this straight. You guys are getting paid to take care of yourself?
Is Monica great or what?
Thanks to Monica.
That's like, it looks like Monica's building like a wellness empire here at Drexel or something. Before we start, I said, Monica, you got to talk to me about doing this at Temple, because Temple doesn't have quite the same reward system. It has some, like the basic cardio stuff and stuff like that, but to have mindfulness and stress management acknowledged as a core way of taking care of yourself, and have it included in this package where you get paid to take care of yourself, it's really great. You're very lucky that you're plugged into an organization that can support that. It's not every place does that. I guess they cause the stress, so then they got to relate to the stress, right? Yeah. So if you're causing something, you got, what is it? You make your bed. What is it? You sleep in the bed you make. What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you make your bed, you get a lie in it.
Right. That's the one. So, but it's great. It's great that you have that opportunity to do that. And as Monica said, this is also a slightly more extended session. If you can make both sessions, that's great. If you can't, that's okay. That's all right. It happens.
Sorry.
It's okay. At least it came early. And the phones are fine if you have to have them on. I think once we start a guided meditation, that's the only time when it's really disruptive. But if it happens while I'm talking, I don't care. So we have 2 sessions, and if you can do both, great. If not, that's also fine. They are standalone, and they will also build on each other. So it's both. And as an introduction to MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, again, the core aspect of this is meditation practice, some kind of mindfulness practice, some kind of spot where you just sit and do nothing. And this is first also a big shout out to Aji and her weekly group. There's a weekly group. Unfortunately, you don't get paid to go to the weekly group, right?
Every second Thursday, $5 worth of wellness points.
All right,
Yes.
you do get part of your wellness points going.
Shameless plug.
Excellent, go for it. So meditation practice, whether it's Drexel or whether an app or whether some kind of place at home or wherever, is one of the kind of irreplaceable aspects. There's nothing you can really do instead. But we define meditation very broadly. It can be yoga, it can be mindful exercising, it can be walks, it can be anything like that. So I'm curious, in the largest way of framing it, how many of you do something where it's a time to just stop and be with yourself and feel what you're feeling, whether it's yoga or taking a walk or exercise? Raise your hand if you do something along those lines. A little bit here or there. That's great. It's about 3/4 of the group. 10 years ago it was like 10% of the group would do that. So now it's something in your life that you feel is a time to stop and not only take care of yourself, but also really feel what you're feeling. Create some space where whatever emotionality or thoughts are churning up, it's a time for them to come up. You give them some space. I recently had one of my parents die, and I had to go back to work right away and just like work steady 5 days, because as a professor I don't get the bereavement time. And after the end of 5 days, I was so pissed off, I was ready to rip somebody's head off. And I couldn't figure out why. And then I realized I hadn't given myself any space to mourn. I hadn't given any space for anything that I was feeling to come up. So one of the first aspects of our journey as people that work with stress and work with emotional ups and downs or fixating thoughts or whatever it might be is creating some space in our lives to just feel what we're feeling. That's kind of in a way, if there's not some inclination to do that and some intention to do that, then everything else I say is meaningless. So I wanted to put that out right there at the beginning, and notice that most of you have that in place, and those of you who don't, I encourage you to do something. Again, starting with a Haji's group or anything else. How about apps? Anybody doing the apps like Headspace or any of those? I know those are getting more popular now, and they're pretty good. It's kind of an interesting extension of the phrase, there's an app for that. Now there's an app for your stress too, for working with your emotional climate. So when we're talking about mindfulness-based stress reduction, also known as MBSR, we have to acknowledge the founder of it, a very brilliant man named John Kabat-Zinn, who fused a lot of medical work. He's trained as a psychologist. Also, his dad was like an epidemiologist. He comes from this heavy-duty medical family. So he framed meditation in a completely scientific way. Measurable positive effects on your body and mind if you do this. Which is very, very skillful, and it's really taken off around the country altogether. I think there's one aspect in which it's slightly weak, in that because it's scientific, it doesn't allow you to assert anything that's not scientifically proven. So you kind of come into it with this neutrality, scientific neutrality, which on the one hand is very, very good, and it kind of sells it in the medical environment. This is not religion. It makes it clear that anybody of any religion can do it. On the other hand, it doesn't necessarily apply to core beliefs that we have about ourselves. And sometimes, if you're talking about stress, sometimes core beliefs have a lot to do with it. So, because this is not an official MBSR program, I can start from a slightly different direction and give what I think is also slightly missing in MBSR, or what you have to tease out of it, which is a belief that you are fundamentally good and healthy and complete as a human being. And Kabat-Zinn said, he used big medical words like homeostasis, or he's famous for saying there's more right with you than is wrong with you. So he goes in that direction, but he never comes out and says you're fundamentally good and healthy and complete and sane and tender-hearted, because that comes with being a human being. 6-month-old baby has all those qualities. We learn how to be cruel. We learn how to be destructive. But when we come out of the womb, we don't have that. So that's, in a way, that's a leap of faith, and I don't expect any of you to believe that coming from me. I mean, I'm a music teacher, so I have no credentials to tell you that that's true. But I think it's an important aspect of stress reduction, because if we feel like we're incomplete, and if we're constantly feeling like we have to prove ourselves, if we feel like we're bad until proven good, then we spend our whole lives trying to prove ourselves, trying to tell ourselves that we're okay. And we get too busy, we say yes to too many things, we do things in a way that's unnecessarily kind of overly done, just because we're trying to prove something to ourselves. We're trying to complete ourselves. We're trying to prove to ourselves that we're okay. So really the fundamental ground of stress management is considering the idea that you are okay. And this is not like airy-fairy, I'm okay, you're okay business. This is a very scientific path and a very thorough path. But if we take that path from the position that we're not okay and that we're kind of fundamentally damaged or fundamentally incomplete, then that whole path is going to be spent trying to complete ourselves. Whereas if we take the attitude, or at least consider the attitude, that we're fundamentally whole and complete and good and sane and kind, then the path is just getting back to what we already are. Then the path is uncovering qualities that we already possess, rather than trying to import something from somewhere else. So this is not like an import-export business. This is much more like a finding the diamonds. You know, I got to say one thing about Temple. I know this is Drexel, so I won't say how great Temple is, because Drexel is just as great as Temple. But you know, the Conwell, the guy that founded it, he had the diamonds in your backyard thing, and his central, you know, it was a night school, and it was all about everything you need, you already have. So the most skillful approach to stress management is the exact same way. Everything you need, the intelligence, the tenderheartedness, the wisdom, the health, you already have. And our journey is then how to uncover that, rather than how to buy it from somewhere. And it goes against, in a way, a lot of our culture, which is very mercantile. That, you know, you need this. You're not complete unless you buy this pair of shoes, you know, or this car, or this gadget. So I invite you to start from that position, that consider the possibility of being complete as you are. And as we get more into meditation, we're going to be working moment by moment. And then when you consider each moment, it really has to be complete, because there's no other moment happening. So when you dig into just being present in the moment, that moment is the only moment there is at that moment. And you can't compare it to a different moment that's happening at the same time, because that's not happening. So whether it's stress management, or whether it's Zen, or Christian contemplative tradition, Jewish, Islam, whatever contemplative traditions are out there, when they zero in on the moment, it's always a complete expression of either the divine or fundamental health or completeness, because you really don't have any choice. It's too late to consider it another moment, because this one's all you have. So given that as the slightly evangelical introduction to some kind of fundamental health, then we get scientific, and the rest of it's scientific from here on in. It's just observing what's happening, and observing how what happens shapes your life. So let's start with just some understanding of, since it's called MBSR, we might as well do a little bit on the M and the S. Maybe let's start with the S. How do we know we're experiencing stress? So what kind of just observable things happen internally or externally that cause, we associate with this word stress? We're not going to come up with a fancy definition or a dictionary definition. Let's just in this room come up with a working definition of what stress is. Yeah?
Well, I would just say in terms of body response, shallow breathing.
Great. So you notice that you're breathing shallowly. Good. What else? What do you notice? Yeah.
Tense muscles.
Tense muscles. Great.
Headache.
Headaches. We have headaches in stereo. Thank you. What else? Sweating. Good. What else? Distraction. Right. Your mind just gets kind of jumpy, right? Yeah, it's a big one for me. Restlessness.
While sleeping.
Mind is racing.
Just races, it keeps going.
Oh. What raises? Your heartbeat or your breathing?
No, my mind just keeps.
It keeps racing.
Racing.
Yeah.
I don't sleep because it's racing.
Right. So mind starts racing, can give rise to insomnia. Absolutely. Good. What else? Anxious, feeling anxious. Good. And where do you notice that in your body when you feel anxious?
For me, it seems like everywhere.
Everywhere.
Stomach, though.
Yeah, I get the knot in the stomach. You know, that's a big one for me. I know that there's something I really got to relate to if I can get a knot in my stomach. Good. What else?
Your heart races.
Heart rate. Yeah, heart starts to race. So this is really interesting because all of you have noticed, have placed you're observing what happens internally. So in a way, you're already a step ahead of what I was going to say, because you're identifying stress as something that's going on in here. Is stress also something that's going on out there? When you say something stressful, like opening your inbox and finding you have 50 emails and 30 of them you have to answer.
Yes.
Right. That's also stressful. That's also stress in a way. Or you're having a difficult exchange with somebody and you see that their name as one of the ones in your inbox. And all of a sudden you can feel what your body does, right? Or this is a very charged time politically. Sometimes it's just like going to the headlines. You know, you can have a physical reaction. In whatever you believe, you can have a physical reaction. What else is a cause of stress on the external side?
I think, particularly in my department, there's a pace, a very,
Right.
It feels like a pace that is hard to keep up with in terms
Right.
of emails and the expectation of deliverables.
Right. Right. So just this atmospheric pace that you're locked into.
Yeah. I think the email lends itself to that because it's constant. And just
Right.
when you think you have it all cleaned up.
Right, there's another
50
one.
more come in.
Right. I just got a new phone, and my old phone, it used to have a flashing light where I got emails, and this one doesn't. And for a while I wanted to get that flashing light because I like to know when I have emails, and I realized, wait a second, that's so great that it doesn't have a flashing light. I don't want to know when I just got another email. So I've given up trying to adjust it to get the light to flash. I'm realizing that's actually a blessing at this point. So yeah, pace. There's just this atmosphere. Get it done. Churn through things quickly. What else is external causes of stress?
Relational things like
Relation.
family, with friends, or just
Yeah.
situations with other people that may be stressful.
Right. Situations with other people. Exactly. Family, friends, children, partners, ex-partners, whatever it might be. Yeah. Good. What else? What else is in it? Something out there. Or maybe half in there, half out there.
I think it's just technology in general too. Any means of communication is so immediate that that's what drives the expectation to have something immediate.
Right.
And so no place, I don't even wanna say to hide, there's no place to just turn it all off and get something done, so you can be responsive, because everything is just immediate.
Interesting. Yeah, so even when you're working, you're also always kind of falling prey to one of these. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's like, I think gradually, I've only had I didn't get a smartphone until like 4 years ago or something, or 3 years ago. I wasn't one of the first people, but I think gradually over time, when I turn it on, now there is a body reaction just to turning it on that there wasn't 3 years ago, because so much information comes at me through that thing. Yeah. Good. Anything else? Yeah.
Physical problems,
Right.
pain,
Right.
injury.
That's in fact how mindfulness-based stress reduction started. Started in a hospital with chronic pain, different people with different kinds of injuries, different kinds of disease. Yeah. Yeah.
We have similar from the
Oh, good.
online audience. We have poor health, expectations, and self-worth.
Great. Poor health, expectations, and kind of habitual sense of low self-worth. Is that- Hi, I forgot to acknowledge you. Thank you for your questions. Welcome. I hope you're also able to carve out some space so that you're able to do this 100% from wherever you are. Good. Thank you for your questions. Yeah, and the self-worth one is exactly piggybacking on what I opened with. If you feel worthless, then that's going to color how you approach your life so much, trying to convince yourself you have some worth. You know, trying to convince yourself that you're just as good as so-and-so. You know, if you're comparing yourself to other people, if you're trying to measure up in any way, then you're always measuring yourself. And whenever you're measuring yourself, you're like saying, well, I'm here, but I could be there. And if I really do X, Y, and Z, then maybe I'll go from here to there. And that creates stress. You know, that creates, just talking about it, it's so deeply ingrained in my family and in where I grew up, just talking about it, I can feel physical reactions. I recently had a death in the family, and I gave a short eulogy, a remembrance. And we're planning another funeral later on. And my sister said, you know, that remembrance was great, but then if we plan this other one, you go to it, it could be even better. And that was like a remembrance about my mom, like trying to make it better, like a better performance at a subsequent event. And it's so, and you know, I love my sister dearly. I'm not saying this to diss my sister, but it's like, you know, it's so deeply ingrained in our culture that even if you speak from the heart about the death of a family member, then you can think, well, I could do that better next time. You know? It's crazy. And my sister, by the way, is not crazy. She's a dear person, but it just shows you that that's kind of the world. A lot of us are so geared towards, you know, we can do it well, and then maybe if we get our cards right, we can do it even better. And it's poisonous. It's poisonous because we get on this track of always having to be better, always having to improve, trade in some aspect of who we are for the 2.4. We're like the 2.1 version, and somehow if we're good, we'll get to the 2.4 version or something. So what we're doing is acknowledging all these different causes of stress. And you all are way ahead, actually, because the next thing I was going to say was, what do we have control over? Do we have control over the number of emails in our inbox or who they come from? Or do we have control over what's going on in our body and our mind? And the fact that everybody in this room and also everybody out there talked about the internal. The internal first is great. It shows that there's some awareness already there, that you know you can't control how many emails come in your inbox. You know, we all have good jobs. You have a very good job that pays you to be here and take care of yourself. But there's certain elements of our job that we can't control. You know, when I was working at UPenn in their stress management program, I was doing an 8-week class, and it turned into a teen parenting support group because so many people in that group had teenage children. And it's another thing you can't control. you can't control your relationships, as Haji said. You can't control what other people are going to do. You can't control what your loved ones are going to do. You can't. Maybe it's just a pet that you love dearly. You can't control when that pet's going to start to get sick and die. You just can't control things out there. So MBSR is based on controlling what's going on in here, because you can control what your heart rate is. You can do certain things to slow down your heart rate. You can control if you're fixating on something, if your mind is just over and over again chewing on it like a dog gnawing on a bone. You can control the degree to which you do that. If you're ready to rip somebody's head off and so angry that it just feels uncontrollable and you're in danger of hurting them, you can do things to help that to subside. So again, the good news is that fundamentally what you're doing is undoing the causes of the disease, whether it's physical dis-ease, like the knot in the stomach or the heart or the blood pressure, or mental agitation, pace of your thoughts, extreme emotions. The core teaching around what we do with them is to just undo what had been causing them and come back to fundamental health. So it's one of the great secrets of meditation practice, mindfulness practice, that it's a process of undoing rather than doing. We're undoing the things that pull us away from being just open and kind and sane and balanced in our body and mind. So we have what's called the triangle of awareness, and it's these three ways we focus our attention. I've been talking enough. Anybody from the cyberspace or in the room want to take a guess? What are the three things we turn our mind towards? Some of you that have been here before, or some of you that have just been sitting in this room. Yes? Your breath. Good. And generally, we can generalize from breath to say what altogether. Breath is a technique. And in MBSR, we're also talking about cardiovascular, yep. Breath, cardiovascular. What else that's related to breath and cardiovascular?
The body.
You guys shouldn't say anything because you already know the answer. Yeah, body, right? So breath is part of body. Cardiovascular, knot in our stomach. So the body doesn't lie. We can, with our conceptual mind, our thinking thoughts, we can talk ourselves in and out of anything, And most of us have, in one way or another, at one time in our life. We won't go through the details there, but we have. So body doesn't do that, right? Body doesn't talk you in and out of things. If you stay and you're present with your body, you feel what you're feeling, and it sends you messages about what's going on. And those messages are true. So if you have shallow breath, that's a message that something's going on. If I have a knot in my stomach, that's my truth at that moment, and I've got to pay attention to it, because there's something I've got to relate to, either internally or externally, that's telling me, guess what? Pay attention, something's going on. So that's the basis of the triangle of awareness, is the body. And the breath is a really beautiful doorway into it, because the breath gives you a window on how your body's feeling. So if you're short of breath, that tells you something. If you're breathing shallowly or quickly, that tells you something. If you're breathing deeply in sighs, if you have a big sigh, that tells you something. So the breath is really the starting place. And I'm glad you said that first, because it really is both a gateway into the feelings of the body and also our fundamental meditation technique. But you can also, I get, for some reason, the muscles right above my left knee also tell me something. So it could be muscles anywhere in your body. That's a little signal that I'm getting anxious about something. So good. So we have body. What else do we mention as far as talking about stress in us besides body? Say again?
Mind?
Mind, good. Specifically, what kind of mental contents? What's going on in our mind? Do we want to go to the cyberspace?
I'm asking them.
Good. All right, all of you out there, we will sit and wait for you to say something. But we won't wait forever. But we'll wait like a minute, because this is a class on meditation, so we can sit tight. Anybody out there want to talk about specifics of working with mind? What do you notice in terms of mind? And while we're waiting, we got one.
We've got thoughts.
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 Good. Thank you. Yes, thoughts. So there's a huge area in psychology and psychotherapy right now called mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. And it's like just exploding out there, that paying attention to your thoughts does change the quality of your life. And if you have thoughts that are like tape loops around something, I've used the word fixation a couple of times, or not being able to disengage from a particular pattern of thoughts. The other one, which is really important in thoughts, is that are all your thoughts true? Raise your hand if you think every thought you've ever had was true. Right? Right. Raise your hand if you think like at least 15% of your thoughts have been just totally inaccurate one way or another. All right, maybe some of you it's more like 7 or 8% of your thoughts. But there's some percentage of your thoughts that you know have just been wrong, right? Just plain wrong. They were not accurate. They're inaccurate perception of reality, right? So that's another triangle. Part of the second point of the triangle of awareness is looking at thoughts. Are you getting dragged around by them, first of all? Do you have any control over what you're thinking about? Or is it like that some giant dog that's now pulling you on the leash instead of you pulling it? So, do you have any control over them? Are they accurate? I don't know if we have the misleading thoughts handout here. If we don't, we can send it along. Is it one of the ones? That's not one of the ones. There's a wonderful top 10 list of misleading thoughts. Like, common one is catastrophizing, right? Like, if this goes wrong, I'm going to lose my job, then I'm going to lose my house, then I'm going to, have food poisoning from eating out of a garbage can, I'm going to be dead in 6 months, And really, if this thing goes wrong, you're probably not going to lose your job. And even if you do, you're probably going to get another job. So catastrophizing is a classic one. Or, I'm the center of the universe. Everything that good that happens, I'm somehow the cause of. Everything that bad happens, I'm somehow the cause of. Self-blame is just as bad as self-credit. Or black and white thinking. Everything's either great or it's terrible. There's no in between. So all of those then have consequences in the body. When you have a strong thought, catastrophizing thought, then physiologically your body starts to secrete hormones that trigger a stress reaction. And they trigger faster breathing. They trigger, blood goes to certain parts of the brain rather than others, so you start thinking a different way. Hormones that then release endorphins, and you get pumped up in different ways. So it has a direct consequence on your body, those thoughts. And then the third one also has to do with mind, which is emotions. And emotions is this very potent, delicious combination of thoughts and body, right? Sometimes they're wonderful, and who would we be if we didn't feel things? And other times, again, they cause stress. So emotions we're not going to start till next week, so this is a little bit of a come back next week if you want to really get to the juicy stuff. Invitation to come back next week if you can. If you can't, hopefully you can do that, and if not, email Monica, and we'll set up some kind of you can get the recording or something, so you can definitely hear it one way or another. Okay, I think that's enough talking about meditation and what this is about. Let's actually do some practice. Any questions on anything I've said? Anything, raise any red flags, or you feel it's just plain? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so before there was mindfulness in John Kabat-Zinn,
Yeah.
there was meditation in Buddhism, and there was TM, and so I'm just curious as to what makes mindfulness a different type, if it is of meditation, or if it's just very consistent with those other types
It's
of
a good
meditation.
question. The practices that we do are identical. So there's really they're identical to some of the practices in Buddhism or pre-Buddhist cultures. Some Hinduism also had working with breath practices. So there's nothing inherently religious about sitting and noticing what's happening in your body and your mind. The main difference, I think, is framing, how things are framed. And MBSR is framed incredibly skillfully because it doesn't require any leap of faith. What I said in terms of acknowledging you're fundamentally good and whole as a human being is as close as we could get to a leap of faith. So that in a way, that's a leap of faith or something to chew on. But MBSR doesn't even do that. So it's very, very skillful. Everything's just observing and developing insight through that. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it sounds like it's just more self-awareness and
Right.
being well, I don't want to use the word.
Right.
Yeah.
You could even just say noticing what's happening.
Right.
Yeah. Good. Anything else before we start? Thank you. All right. Let's do some practice. So, I work with college kids. You're around college kids a lot. You see a lot of this, right? Like, okay, I'm now going to learn something about something, And it's hard to work with your mind in this position. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's like, so there is a gentle emphasis on posture and the way of holding your body that does support mindfulness practice. So we're going to go through posture a little bit. These chairs are pretty good. You've got a choice in these chairs. You can either kind of scooch all the way back and let your lower back be supported, but then let the rest of your back kind of slide away, or you can lean all the way back. But again, be aware that you want to have some feeling of alertness, some feeling of just kind of, I'm awake, I'm here, I'm engaged. And it doesn't have to be like a paranoid, I got to get it done feeling, but it's just kind of like, I'm here, I'm awake, I'm ready to engage whatever's going on. And if your feet, I know some of you, your feet might not reach the ground well in this position, toes are touching. I tend to like to have both feet planted firmly on the floor. Some people prefer crossing their legs like this. I think it's a little more solid to kind of have this triangle. So you have your torso, and you have each foot. Going up from there, hands you can place on your thighs. If that works for you, you can fold them in your lap. And one thing that helps is just to imagine your spine as a string of beads hanging from the sky. So you have a sense of just a little bit being pulled upwards, a little bit of support. And to make sure that you're really stretching in a way that works or extending upward in a way that works, sometimes it's helpful just to let your hands drop by your sides. And these chairs don't have arms. And you can just play around a little bit, leaning forward, leaning back, leaning side to side. And just see, where do you find a spot where you feel balanced? You don't feel like you're leaning too far forward, too far back. You're not trying too hard. So there's this balance of sense of basic wakefulness, sense of being here, engaged, and at the same time, you're not working very hard. You're being held by the chair in some way. So you find that spot and then bend your arms at the elbows, plop them on your thighs. Usually the gaze is lowered, maybe 4 to 6 feet in front of you, or else you can close your eyes, or you can have really heavy eyelids. So you're gathering your attention inward, taking stock of whatever's in there. If you're comfortable breathing a little bit through your mouth and mostly through your nose, that's one of the ways that's encouraged. And if you have a different way of breathing, either all nose or all mouth, whatever, that's fine. Many traditions encourage you to place the tip of your tongue right behind the teeth. And if you can do that and still have your mouth relaxed, that's fine. If not, you don't need to worry about it. You can let your tongue go wherever it feels at rest. So we're creating a good container for our mind to start sifting through our experience. And the first thing we do once we've established this posture is just to feel the feelings in our body. Just to notice what parts of our body are sending us any signals. And as we're noticing that, seeing if we can come back to this fundamental feeling of completeness. That this moment of experience, these sensations in our body, they're all that's happening, and they're all that needs to be happening. So as we feel them, we're not trying to trade ourselves in for a different person. Not trying to trade this moment of experience for a different moment. We're seeing if we can let go of judging and measuring and just feel what we're feeling. And as you're feeling what you're feeling, I'd like you to just do a short contemplation. And the contemplation is to imagine somebody who you really care about. A loved one, it could be a sibling, a parent, a child, a pet, a best friend, somebody who you have some kind of unconditional affection for. You just have a soft spot for this person. They could be dead or alive. No matter what they do, you're always going to care about them. I invite you to feel that as fully as you can. Just bringing up the person, bringing up the image of that person, and bringing up your feelings about them. Maybe even feeling those in your body. Some kind of love, compassion, caring. No matter what they do, you'll feel that way about them. And now taking those feelings and turning them towards yourself. Seeing if you can have that same powerful energy of caring and unconditional love for yourself. And just noticing what happens when you do that. Can you turn it around and offer that to yourself? So within that space of exploring unconditional caring and love for ourselves, we start to pay attention to the physical sensations of breathing. And now we start working with the breath in a more formal way. Noticing the sensations in the body with the exhale and the inhale. And as thoughts come up, pull us away from the present. Noticing that and coming back to this very moment of sensation. The sensation of your body moving with the breath. And if you have a lot of thoughts, that's completely fine. That's what happens. That's what our minds do. So the practice is to just gently notice that you're thinking and come back as fully as you can to feeling the sensations that go with your inhale and your exhale. And as you're doing this, you can also notice any other signals that your body's sending you. You can take a moment to check in with your shoulders or your small of your back, hands. And then as a way of anchoring your mind, coming back to the physical sensations of breathing. Noticing your thoughts and seeing if you can just disengage from them and come back to this very moment of sensation. And remembering that acceptance is really the key ingredient for the whole thing. Simply accepting yourself as you are right now. Even if it's hard to acknowledge our completeness and goodness, if we can fully accept who we are, that's 3/4 of the way there. And we're going to be transitioning to a few closing questions. A little bit of discussion about what that was like. So if your eyes are closed, you can open them, maybe starting with looking downward. Still continuing to tune into your breath. And still feeling sensations in our body, just coming back and opening our eyes. Perhaps looking around, noticing the people, furniture, ceiling tile, whatever else is there. Also, thank you to the people online, opening your eyes and taking in whatever is in your environment. If you're sitting at your desk at work, looking around your workplace, if you're at home, looking around wherever you are at home. So we still have a sense of being here. We're still just here, but we're here in a slightly wider context. Any reflections on that, what that was like? Maybe we can just do popcorn style, just a word. Just a word or a phrase about what you're feeling right now. Staying in the present for one more moment. Anything can be positive, negative, comfortable, uncomfortable.
Refreshed.
Refreshed.
Relaxed.
Relaxed. What else?
Rhythmic breathing.
Rhythmic breathing. I'm going to repeat them all for people who might not be able to hear them, for our cyber guests. What else? Sleepy? Yeah. Yeah, sleepy. And that's really good news if you have trouble sleeping too, because you can use this practice as a sleep aid. And there's boatloads of research about how that really does work. From line.
We have relaxed, 3 votes. We have weightless, and we have thank you.
Good. Thank you. Out there, thank you. Others? Popcorn, usually you get like 90% of the kernels pop, so I'm still waiting for some more popping here.
Bigger?
Bigger? Yeah, good. Feel bigger. There's more space. Absolutely. What else?
Tears.
Tears. Great. Tears. Contact with what's really happening there. What else?
Stillness.
Stillness. Stillness and calm. Stillness and calm arose at the same time. That's good. What else?
Comfort.
Comfort. So these have all been kind of on the positive side of things. Anybody feeling challenging things? Tears, I guess, could be challenging. Anything challenging coming up?
Stiff.
Louder?
Stiff.
Stiffness. Right, good.
We have aware.
Aware? Great.
Distraction.
Distraction.
I had to keep pulling my mind back from what do I have to do this afternoon?
Right. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Good. A couple more words? We have time for 3 more kernels to pop.
Clear.
Clear. Clear, kind of mental clarity. Good. That's all right. There are always a few kernels that don't pop too, right?
I had some amusement because I noticed that a thought came up like so random, and all of a sudden I was like, why? Why am I thinking about this? That's so random. So then I just laughed at myself and
Right.
brought myself back.
Yeah, that's kind of in connection with bigger too. It's like there's
Yeah.
bigger space, there's room for play. At a certain point in meditation practice, you start to enjoy your mind. Not right away, usually. But there is a point that comes where you're practicing and you say, wow, this is a crazy mind I have. It just like cranks out all this stuff. And you can enjoy it because you're also resting in the larger space. So there's some loyalty to some big awareness taking place. And then within that awareness, you just see all kinds of stuff coming up, and it's kind of fun. But the first thing we have to do is establish that awareness in that big space, and that takes practice. So I encourage you to do some kind of practice where you're pretty much doing nothing, the way we were doing. Maybe yoga, maybe breathing, exercising, and just coming back to what you're feeling and the immediate experience of this moment. And in terms of the triangle of awareness, that does two things that we touched on most directly. That helps you disengage from thought. So you're practicing over and over again, not giving your thoughts power over your life, right? So when you do this practice, or you do yoga in a mindful way, or free weights, whatever it is, treadmill, if you're consciously disengaging from thought and coming back to the immediate experience of the present in your body, on a certain level, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be walking your dog, you could be watering your plants, but certain things make it easier than others. So that, in terms of the triangle of awareness, we're disempowering thoughts. We're saying thoughts don't need power over us. We can be present, we can have mental clarity, we can have space in our mind, because all that is a habit. And if it's a habit, we can undo it. It's a habit that got going somehow. It's not who we are. It's a habitual pattern. And it evolved, and because it evolved, it can devolve. We can undo it. We also worked with body, in terms of body giving us messages about what's going on. So it's 1 minute before 1. I'd like to just, can I do one last thing?
Of course.
Very quick. This is a 30-second practice for you to take with you to work, to your workplace. It's one of the backbones of stress management. It's called 3 relaxing sighs. I'd like to end with this as a transition. It's very simple. All you do is you sit and you sigh 3 times. And you can vocalize it if you want, or it can be unvocal. So let's just all sit and sigh 3 times. Good breath in. Another one. I hope you're doing this wherever you are, too. There's time for one more if you want to do one more. There's always time for one more. So that's a way of accessing kind of a wholeness, again, disengaging from thought. A lot of the challenge here is just stopping doing what you're doing and doing a sigh. Having said that, I need to stop because Monica is standing up, and that's the signal.
Can I have Hachi come up and just briefly announce the Drexel Meditation Group? And if you're here in person, there are handouts which I'll migrate to the back of the room.
Great. Hello, everyone. If you have not been to our Thursday sessions, I encourage you to join us. They're every Thursday from 12:30 to 1. Second Thursdays of the month, you get $5 wellness points. We meet in the Intercultural Center in the Interfaith Sanctuary, and it's really a great way, especially if you're just getting started with a practice, it's a great way to come together with others and do what we just did. So I have some of these if you want to grab one and feel free to take multiple if you'd like to share, but we would love to see you every Thursday, 12:30 to 1, and it's drop-in, so you don't have to commit to being there every week. You can come whenever you're able to. So thank you for coming today, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you. I'm not going to say goodbye because we have next week also.
Thanks.
So I hope to see you either here or through the camera.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Please do applause, please.
That's a way of saying thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You're right. You want to say thank you? I'd like to say thank you.
Oh, it's Tuesday again.
I come from a Buddhist tradition, so I'm used to ending with a bow, you know?
Thank you so much. It was really wonderful.
Thank you for your
And
participation.
I'm a temple.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
What are you doing over there? You're
No,
both
I'm a
places.
temple grad.
Oh, you're a temple grad.
Yeah, I'm not an
Okay.
academic. I work here, but, yeah, and I love temple.
So I go out.
Yes, but thank
Go,
you.
and there's the
Go
jacket
out.
right there.
We just work here.
Yeah.
I tell people that.
Go Dragons.
Dragons.
I'd rather have a dragon.
Yep.
Bye, good seeing you.
Owls are wonderful.
You want to hug?
Yeah, owls are very wise, cool birds. That's okay. Dragons have a kind of depth of wisdom to them.
We got a blue stall ordered.
Going to the
Oh, good.
All dragons are created
He
equal.
wants it for very
Yeah.
much. He wants it for
What do you do here at Drexel?
I work in my
small space.
It's always changing. That's one of those fields where it's like you never get bored because you always gotta learn something new.
Yes.
Great
Yeah,
away.
I think the age where I'm having trouble remembering as well as I did when I was younger.
Yeah.
Everything's still changing.
You're
Right.
Remember all
Oh, really?
this.
Good.
Right.
So you'll have
It's
her
true.
get
I
paid.
have to.
You'll
Your
never
sister
money back.
needs
That's
every
the money I
semester.
come for.
Oh, I know, but
Alex, see you next week.
it's a reinvestment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll see you. That'll be awesome.